The air in the dusty auction barn just outside Cheyenne, Wyoming, was thick with the smell of stale hay and cigarette smoke, the dim fluorescent lights flickering overhead like a dying pulse. Rows of folding chairs creaked under the weight of ranchers, dealers, and curiosity seekers, their murmurs a low hum against the rhythmic thud of the auctioneer's gavel. In the center of the concrete floor lay a German shepherd. His black and tan coat dull and matted, his body scarred with a roadmap of pain no one bothered to read. His ribs pressed against his skin, and his eyes, once sharp with military precision, stared blankly at the ground. Unblinking, as if he'd forgotten how to hope. Next up, Lot 47, the auctioneer barked, his voice hoarse from hours of shouting. Former military dog, male, German shepherd. Aggressive, untrainable, final sale before he's put down. Bidding starts at $50. Laughter rippled through the crowd, sharp and cruel. Not worth the dirt on his paws. A man in a stained cowboy hat sneered, spitting tobacco juice into a cup. Damaged goods, another voice chimed in, cold and dismissive. The dog didn't flinch, didn't lift his head. His stillness a stark contrast to the chaos around him. To them, he was a liability, a broken tool no one wanted to fix. In the back row, a chair scraped against the concrete as Lucas Bennett stood. His lean frame cutting through the shadows. At 32, he carried the weight of a decade in the army, his green eyes shadowed by memories of Iraq, his hands rough from years of gripping rifles and reins. He wore a faded jacket with a ranger patch stitched on the sleeve, its edges frayed like his nerves. 3 years back in Wyoming, and he still woke to the sound of phantom explosions. The ranch he'd inherited from his uncle, his only tether to sanity. He hadn't come here looking for a dog, just a distraction from the ghosts that haunted his nights, but the classified ad in the local paper had snagged him, military dog. Aggressive, last chance before euthanasia. 6 lines that hit him like a punch to the gut. "I'll take him," Lucas said, his voice low but steady, slicing through the mockery like a blade. The room fell silent, heads turning to stare at the stranger in the back. The auctioneer squinted, caught off guard, then shrugged. "Sold for $50 to the guy in the jacket. Good luck, you'll need it." Dr. Rachel Hayes, the local vet who'd been watching from the sidelines, felt a flicker of hope amid her frustration. She'd tried to intervene, to get the dog pulled from the auction. But the military paperwork was a locked vault she couldn't crack. Her brown eyes tracked Lucas as he approached the shepherd, her mind racing. Could this haunted man save a dog as broken as he seemed to be? Or would they just drag each other deeper into the dark? The paperwork was a formality, $200 total, a signature on a waiver absolving the county of liability. And a worn leash handed over with a smirk. "I'd muzzle him if I were you," the auctioneer warned, tossing the leash to Lucas. "He's a biter, nearly took a guy's hand off last week." Lucas ignored the advice, his boots echoing as he crouched 6 feet from the dog, keeping his movements slow, deliberate. He'd handled military canines before, knew the signs of a soldier coiled for a fight. The shepherd's ears flattened slightly, his muscles tensing, but Lucas stayed calm, his voice soft as a whisper on the wind. "Hey, fella. I'm Lucas. I'm not here to hurt you." The dog's eyes flickered toward him, a brief spark in their dull depths, then dropped back to the floor. Rachel stepped closer, her vet bag slung over her shoulder. "His records are a mess," she said quietly. "Been here a month, won't eat much, won't let anyone near him. They've been calling him scrap, like he's trash." "That's not your name," Lucas said to the dog. His tone firm but gentle. "We'll figure out something better." What happened next was a blur, so fast the sparse crowd couldn't agree on the details later. The shepherd lunged. A flash of teeth aimed at Lucas's throat, a snarl ripping from his chest. Gasps echoed through the barn, someone shouted, "Put him down." But Lucas didn't move. He held the dog's gaze. Unflinching, and something passed between them, pain recognizing pain, a silent pact forged in an instant. The shepherd's jaws stopped inches from Lucas's neck, hot breath mixing with the scent of fear and fury. Then slowly pulled back, confusion clouding his eyes. "Jesus," a bitter muttered, stepping away. "He's a damn menace." "No," Lucas said, standing, his voice cutting through the tension. "He's comin' home with me." Getting the dog to the truck was a war of patience. He wouldn't budge, his body rigid with terror, claws scraping the concrete. Lucas didn't force him, just sat on the floor. Talking about the ranch, the wide-open plains, the quiet that could drown out the noise in their heads. 2 hours passed, the auction house emptying out, the staff grumbling about closing time. "Mr. Bennett, we're locking up," the auctioneer called. "If you can't handle him, we leave when he's ready," Lucas snapped, his tone leaving no room for debate. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the Wyoming sky in streaks of orange and purple, the shepherd took a tentative step toward him, then another. By the time they reached the truck, an old Ford with dents older than Lucas, the dog walked beside him. Not trusting, but willing. Rachel watched them drive off, whispering, "Good luck," unsure if she meant it for the man or the dog. That first night tested them both. Lucas had set up a corner of the barn with straw and water. But the shepherd refused to enter, trembling at the sight of the enclosed space, his eyes wild with memories Lucas couldn't see. "All right," he said, grabbing a blanket from the porch. "We'll do it your way." They spent the night under the stars, Lucas on the steps, the dog by the fence, a careful distance between them. Neither slept, the silence broken only by the wind rattling the sagebrush and the occasional whimper from the shepherd's throat. Rachel arrived at dawn, her vet truck rumbling up the gravel drive, her eyes catching the untouched food bowl and Lucas's haggard face. "How'd it go?" she asked, stepping out. "We're figuring it out," Lucas replied, his voice rough from a night of quiet talking to a dog that wouldn't come close. She tried to examine him, but the moment her stethoscope glinted, the shepherd's hackles rose, a growl rumbling deep in his chest. She stepped back as he pressed himself against the fence, shaking. "That's not just fear," she said, frowning. "That's trauma. Someone hurt him bad, and it involved medical gear." Lucas watched the dog pace, his own hands clenching. "He's not broken," he said, more to himself than her. "He's just lost, like I was." That night, a storm rolled in from the Rockies, thunder cracking like artillery fire. The shepherd bolted, crashing into the fence, blood streaking his fur as he tore across the ranch. Lucas chased him through the rain, mud sucking at his boots, lightning flashing the dog's silhouette against the dark. 2 miles out, the shepherd cornered himself in a ditch. Trembling, snarling at shadows. Lucas sat in the mud, rain soaking his jacket, and talked about the war, the screams, the nights he couldn't trust anyone. "I get it," he said. Voice steady despite the storm. "But you can't stay there forever. I've tried." Hours passed, the thunder fading to a distant rumble. The shepherd took a step toward him, then another, not close enough to touch, but close enough to matter. They walked back together, 2 figures battered by more than the weather, a fragile thread of trust tying them to the dawn. The Wyoming dawn broke cold and clear over Lucas Bennett's ranch. The Rockies looming like silent sentinels against a sky streaked with pink and gold. The German shepherd, still unnamed, a shadow trailing Lucas's every step, stood by the fence. His black and tan coat damp from the night storm, his amber eyes fixed on the horizon. Lucas leaned against the porch railing, coffee steaming in his hands, his army jacket slung over his shoulders. A week had passed since the auction, and the dog's presence had shifted something in him, a purpose he hadn't felt since Iraq, a fight he could still win. Dr. Rachel Hayes arrived mid-morning. Her vet truck kicking up dust as she pulled in, a thick envelope tucked under her arm. She'd been digging into the shepherd's past, chasing whispers through military channels. And her face was grim as she joined Lucas at the kitchen table. "They finally coughed up his file," she said, spreading out papers stamped with redacted blocks and official seals. "His name's Titan, deployed with the Army in Iraq, Special Forces. 3 tours, commendations up the wazoo. Then he vanishes from the records for 8 months before showing up here." Lucas's hands trembled as he scanned the documents, his jaw tightening. Training logs, 18-hour days, no breaks. No dog can take that. He paused, his voice dropping. "These dates, his last tour lines up with mine. He was there, Rachel. The day we lost half my squad in Fallujah." Titan, hearing Lucas's tone, edged closer to the table, his ears pricked. A flicker of recognition in his eyes. Rachel pulled out a final sheet, her voice hesitant. "There's more. After Fallujah, he was reassigned to a program run by Colonel Daniel Voss, enhanced training. Off-the-books stuff. The records are blacked out, but he disappears right after. Next thing, he's in that auction, marked for death." Lucas stood, the chair scraping hard against the floor, startling Titan back to his corner. "Voss," he spat, the name a bitter taste. "I knew him, ran black site ops, rumors of brutal methods. Everyone said he was untouchable." Rachel nodded, her brown eyes sharp with concern. "Someone wanted Titan gone, erased. He knows something, Lucas. And they're covering it up." Titan began to whine, a high, keening sound that cut through the room, pawing at his neck, his body tensing. Lucas approached slowly, kneeling as his fingers brushed the thick fur, finding a metal edge buried beneath the skin. "Call your clinic," he said, voice tight. "We need this out, now." That evening, under sedation at Rachel's clinic, she extracted a military ID tag embedded in Titan's neck. Its numbers worn but one name clear, handler, Colonel Daniel Voss. Lucas's face went pale. Voss was discharged 5 years back, ethics violations, but nothing stuck. He's out there, still pulling strings. Titan stirred, groggy but alert, his eyes locking onto Lucas with a clarity that hadn't been there before. "He remembers," Lucas said, his voice raw. "Whatever they did, it's tied to Voss, and me." The next morning brought a breakthrough. Lucas woke to Titan whimpering in the yard, caught in a nightmare, legs twitching as if running from ghosts. Without thinking, Lucas knelt beside him, speaking in the calm cadence he'd used with shell-shocked soldiers. "You're safe, bud. It's just a dream, Wyoming, not the war." Titan's eyes snapped open. Wild for a moment, then softened, watching Lucas with an intensity that rooted them both. Slowly, the dog rose and climbed the porch steps, sitting a careful distance away, not touching, but near. "Yeah," Lucas said, a faint smile breaking through. "I get M too, the ones where you're back there, where you can't save M." He talked about Fallujah, the ambush, the guilt, and Titan's ears tracked every word, his body easing as if the confession lightened their shared load. Rachel arrived later, stopping short at the sight, Lucas on the porch, Titan at the steps, a fragile piece between them. "This is huge," she said, her voice soft. "What changed?" "We saw each other," Lucas replied, not looking up from his coffee. "Sometimes that's enough." The day unfolded with small victories. Titan took food from Lucas's hand, retreating to eat but returning closer each time. When a truck backfired down the road, he didn't bolt, just edged nearer to Lucas, a silent plea for anchor. That evening, Rachel's phone call shattered the calm. "My Pentagon contact found Voss," she said, breathless. He's with a private contractor now, training dogs for offshore ops, no oversight. He's still at it, Lucas. Titan tensed at Voss's name, a tremor running through him, but he stayed by Lucas's side. Ears flat. He'll never touch another dog, Lucas vowed, kneeling to meet Titan's gaze. I promise you that. The shift came that night. Lucas left the front door open, stepping back. Your call, bud, inside or out. You're not caged here. Minutes ticked by, then Titan climbed the steps, entering the house with deliberate caution, settling near the exit but inside. For the first time, both slept without nightmares, a quiet trust stitching their wounds. A week later, an unexpected visitor rattled the ranch's peace. Emily Carter, widow of SGT. Tom Carter from Lucas's old unit, arrived unannounced, her dark hair pulled tight, tears brimming as she saw Titan. That's him, she whispered, clutching a letter. Tom wrote about him, said he saved 4 guys before the ambush. That's Titan, isn't it? Lucas watched, stunned, as Titan approached her, pressing his head gently against her hand, a soldier's salute. Emily sank to her knees, hugging him. And Titan didn't pull away. He remembers, Lucas said, voice thick. They never forget their people. Over coffee, Emily shared Tom's last letter, concerns about Voss's program. Dogs vanishing after showing trauma, a plan to blow the whistle. The day before he died, he mailed me this, she said, handing over an envelope. Inside were photos, dogs in brutal training. Titan among them, and notes detailing Voss's methods. He was gathering proof, she said. Then the ambush happened. Titan stood abruptly, moving to the window as a black SUV rolled up the drive. His growl was low, protective, his body shielding Lucas and Emily. 2 men in suits stepped out, their smiles too smooth. Mr. Bennett, one called, we're with a security firm. Heard you've got a military dog, willing to pay big to take him off your hands. Titan's snarl deepened, years of pain fueling his defiance. He's not for sale, Lucas said. Stepping forward, his ranger steel in his voice. This is private land, leave, or I call the feds. The men retreated, but their threat lingered in the dust. Emily's eyes hardened. Tom died for this. We've got to finish it. Lucas nodded, Titan at his side, their bond no longer just survival, it was a mission. The Wyoming sky stretched wide and restless over Lucas Bennett's ranch. Clouds rolling in from the Rockies like an omen of the battle ahead. Titan, the German shepherd once condemned at auction, stood tall beside Lucas on the porch, his black and tan coat gleaming in the morning light. Scars a testament to his survival. 3 weeks had passed since Emily Carter's visit, and the evidence she'd brought, photos, notes, proof of Colonel Daniel Voss's atrocities, burned in Lucas's mind. Fueling a fire he hadn't felt since Iraq. Titan's amber eyes tracked the horizon, alert but steady, a soldier reborn through trust. Rachel Hayes arrived before dawn, her vet truck loaded with files and urgency. Voss's firm just got a big contract, she said, spreading medical reports across the kitchen table. 4 dogs from his program were put down last month, labeled unstable. They're erasing evidence. Lucas. Titan's ears flattened at Voss's name, but he didn't tremble, just pressed closer to Lucas, ready. A sharp knock interrupted them. Titan sprang up, his growl precise. As Lucas opened the door to Special Agent Tom Kessler, FBI badge gleaming. Mr. Bennett, Kessler said, stepping inside, we've been after Voss for 2 years. Your friend SGT. Carter was our informant, until he was silenced. Voss has been killing off dogs that could expose him. That 1 inch, he nodded at Titan, might be the last witness. Lucas's chest tightened. How many? 32 in 4 years, Kessler replied, grim. All top-tier military dogs, declared unfit after Voss's enhanced training. He's got friends in high places, keeps investigations buried. Rachel handed over Emily's documents. This enough? It's a start, Kessler said, but we need more, something concrete. A crack split the air, a gunshot from the tree line. Titan lunged, knocking Lucas from the window as glass shattered, shards raining where he'd stood. Kessler drew his weapon, Rachel ducked behind the counter, but Titan took charge, moving through the house. Checking exits with military precision. Local deputies arrived minutes later, finding casings but no shooters, a warning shot from Voss's men. They're desperate, Kessler said, holstering his gun. Means we're close. That night, Titan stayed vigilant, his presence a shield as Lucas sat with him on the porch. You saved me today, Lucas said, voice low. Just like Fallujah. Titan's eyes met his, a silent pact renewed. They were soldiers again, fighting a war of their own making. The next morning, Lucas woke to Titan standing guard by his bed. Calm but resolute. We're training, Lucas said, a plan forming. Not Voss's way, force and fear, but a partnership built on trust. With Rachel's help, they started slow, letting Titan set the pace. Using quiet words instead of commands. Wanna check the fence with me? Lucas asked, and Titan followed, his stride syncing with Lucas's, a team forged in mutual respect. Emily returned with more of Tom's files. Watching in awe. He'd be proud, she said, tears brimming. This is what military dogs should be, partners, not weapons. The threat escalated 3 days later. Rachel's call came at midnight. Voss's demo is tomorrow, big show for contractors and brass. They're moving fast. Titan froze, ears pivoting as headlights flashed at the drive's end, 3 SUVs, engines idling. Lucas killed the lights, Emily activated a silent alarm rigged by local vets. And Titan positioned himself at the door, his growl a soldier's warning. Mr. Bennett, a voice called, smooth and cold. Major Voss wants his dog back, name your price. He's not property, Lucas shot back, stepping onto the porch, Titan at his side. He's a soldier, and you're trespassing. Voss emerged from the shadows, his silver hair glinting. His smile venomous. Those dogs were failures, Bennett. Unstable, just like you. I gave them mercy. Titan's snarl was defiance incarnate, his body shielding Lucas. Headlights flared, deputies and vets roaring up the drive. Led by Sheriff Mike Lawson, a former Marine. Stand down, Voss, Lawson barked. Feds are 2 minutes out. Voss retreated, his threat lingering, this isn't over. But Titan's stance said otherwise, he'd chosen his fight. The demo dawned crisp and tense outside Casper, Voss's facility a fortress of steel and secrecy. Lucas and Titan slipped in with Kessler's credentials, Titan in a tactical vest. His bearing unshaken despite the echoes of his past. Emily posed as press, distributing evidence, while Rachel monitored from a van. At 9 a.m., Voss took the stage, his suit pristine. His voice commanding. Welcome to the future of canine training. Titan's ears flicked, he'd caught a scent. Lucas followed him to the rear kennels, finding handlers sedating dogs for retirement. Stand down, Lucas ordered, his ranger authority ringing. Federal investigation, you're done. Voss appeared, flanked by guards, his composure slipping at Titan's sight. You're a fool, Bennett. That dog's a relic. He's proof, Lucas said, as Titan stood tall, a living rebuke. Handlers hesitated, one whispering, that's Titan, he was supposed to be dead. The crowd swelled, military brass drawn by the commotion. Emily's voice cut through, these are the records, abuse, eliminations, all under Voss. Kessler flashed his badge. And Titan's calm defiance silenced Voss's protests. The truth unraveled, handlers turned, evidence mounted, and Voss was cuffed as the demo collapsed into chaos. Back at the ranch, Titan guided a rescued dog, a young shepherd, away from panic, his patience a beacon of healing. "That's what you're made of," Lucas said, pride swelling. "Not Voss's machine, a soldier's heart." Lesson from the story. Redemption isn't just about surviving, it's about choosing to fight for what's right, even when the world's given up on you. Lucas, Bennett and Titan. A scarred soldier and a rejected military dog turned their shared pain into a mission that exposed corruption and saved lives. This story proves that trust and loyalty can heal the deepest wounds. And that second chances can spark unstoppable courage, whether you've got 2 legs or 4. What do you think? Could a bond like Lucas and Titan's pull you through tough times? Have you ever seen a dog, or a person, rise from the ashes to fight back? Share your stories in the comments, we want to hear them. If this tale of grit, heart, and justice hit you hard, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more epic journeys. Tell us where you're watching from and what kind of dog and human tale you'd love next. Let's keep this fight alive.